the 2024 Heisman Trophy and a member of the Nike family. Please welcome to the stage, nice and loud, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, let's go! Let's go, legendary! Let's go! Yes, sir!
How y'all doing?
Yes, sir! Yes, sir!
They said he'd be a footnote, a fifth-round pick, a name you'd forget by week 3. But somewhere inside Nike's headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, there's a sales dashboard that tells a completely different story, and the people paid millions to predict this stuff never saw it coming. Shedeur Sanders just did something with the jersey that franchise quarterbacks taken first overall couldn't do. And the question rattling around boardrooms right now isn't, how did this happen? It's, how did we miss it again?
Well, we'll jump right into it. Feels very full circle. I was telling them briefly, obviously covered you 2 seasons ago on ESPN Plus, and now you're on every single platform in primetime, every channel. But we'll start with, how does it feel for you to be a Nike NIL football athlete and a part of the Nike family?
Well, it's definitely amazing. You originally were a Nike anyway, so they finally brought back Dad's shoes, and I'm really excited for that, and it just feels like home. So
Let's start with something you already know, because if you follow the draft, you live through it with the rest of us. Shedeur Sanders slid and slid and slid. A quarterback who threw for over 4,000 yards, who completed passes at one of the highest rates in college football, who turned 2 struggling programs into must-watch television, and he sat there, round after round, while the cameras kept cutting back to his face. You remember that. Everybody remembers that. It became the story of the entire draft. Not who went first, who kept falling. And here's the thing about that slide that nobody in a front office wanted to admit at the time. Every single minute he stayed on that board, his story got bigger. Every pick that passed him by wasn't burying him, it was building him. Because while general managers were treating him like a risk, fans were treating him like a movement. Now fast forward to today, because the numbers that are circulating right now, the ones that reportedly have people inside Nike doing double takes, they don't look like 5th-round pick numbers. They don't even look like 1st-round pick numbers. They look like superstar numbers. Established, face of the league, been here 10 years superstar numbers. And that's the part that has apparel insiders scrambling. Think about how this business usually works. Merchandise sales follow a script. The #1 overall pick gets the big launch. The big market quarterback gets the front-of-store display. The veteran MVP gets the commercial. Everybody else, you fight for scraps on the back rack. That's the formula. It's been the formula for decades. Shedeur Sanders just took that formula and set it on fire. From the moment his name was finally called by Cleveland, his jersey didn't just move, it moved like a limited edition sneaker drop. We're talking about a rookie taken in the 140s, outpacing players who were drafted 100 picks ahead of him. Guys with guaranteed money, guys with locked-in starting jobs, and he blew past them like they were standing still.
Yeah, the Nike Air DT Max 96, for those of you that don't know, the Dirty Bird version. And, you know, we mentioned being a part of the Nike family and your family in general, such a big football family. Was it always going to be football for you, or was there ever any other sports or careers considered?
Well, we played all the other sports. I definitely played soccer, basketball, and baseball and everything, but Shiloh used to pitch.
And now, according to the chatter making its way around the industry, he's done it again. Another sales window, another record for his draft position, another moment where the people whose entire job is forecasting demand had to look at a spreadsheet and ask, is this real? It's real. And if you understand where Shedeur comes from, you know it was never an accident. Picture the scene for your editors here. A kid growing up not just watching primetime, living with primetime. Deion Sanders wasn't just one of the most electric players in NFL history. He was one of the most marketable athletes the sport has ever produced. The high-stepping, the jewelry, the swagger that sold out stadiums and moved product off shelves before brand was even a word athletes used. Shedeur didn't read a book about marketing. He grew up at the dinner table with the guy who wrote it.
So when the so-called experts measured Shedeur before the draft, they measured arm strength, they measured pocket presence, they measured processing speed. You know what they didn't measure? Gravity, the pull this kid has on an audience. The way millions of people, many of whom don't even watch college football, knew his name, followed his journey, and felt personally invested in whether he succeeded or failed. You can't put gravity on a scouting report, but you can absolutely put it on a sales chart. And right now, that chart is going vertical. Here's a question for you, and I want you to actually think about this one. Maybe drop your answer in the comments. When was the last time a player's business value and his draft value were this far apart? When has the market, real people spending real money, disagreed this loudly with 32 NFL front offices? Because that's what this is. This isn't just a merchandise story. This is a referendum.
Well, you mentioned making great decisions as part of your job as a quarterback, but what else do you think separates you from other quarterbacks across the country?
I'm just me. I got the it factor. you can bring these other guys on stage, and I promise you, they ain't the same as me. So, and I truly believe that.
Preach!
Every jersey that flies off a shelf is a fan saying, "You were wrong about him." Every sold-out size run is a receipt, and the receipts are piling up. Now let's talk about why this reportedly has people inside the apparel world so rattled. Because on the surface, you'd think record sales would be nothing but champagne and high fives, right? More money for everybody. What's the problem? The problem is what it exposes. These companies spend fortunes on predictive models. They study draft position, market size, team success, social metrics, all of it, to decide who gets the marketing machine behind them and who doesn't. Those models are supposed to be the crystal ball. And a fifth-round quarterback from Cleveland just walked through the crystal ball like it was a paper wall. Word around the industry is that the initial production runs tied to Shedeur were sized like you'd size them for, well, a fifth-round pick. Conservative, careful, safe. And then demand hit, and it kept hitting. And suddenly safe turned into, we can't keep this thing in stock. In this business, empty shelves sound like a good problem. Until you realize empty shelves are money you didn't make, demand you couldn't serve, customers walking away. That's not a victory lap. That's a miscalculation. And when a miscalculation happens twice, that's a pattern. That's when the meetings start. That's when somebody in a conference room has to stand up and explain how the models missed the most obvious cultural force in football. And while we're on the subject of Cleveland, can we talk about the perfect storm this landed in? The Browns fan base might be the most loyal, most starved, most emotionally invested fan base in all of American sports. This is a city that has waited generations for a quarterback to believe in. Generations. They've been burned so many times that believing almost feels dangerous. And into that city walks a kid with championship-level confidence, a famous last name, and a chip on his shoulder the size of Lake Erie. Of course they bought the jersey. Of course they did. You give Cleveland a reason to hope, and they will empty their wallets to support it. The city didn't just get a quarterback prospect, it got a story. And Cleveland has always been a city that runs on stories.
Really, it's just a conversation I had with my dad, and then he told me, this makes sense. So that's how he just came out with the logo. But I own the logo, by the way. He has no ownership in the logo. He's gonna try to, but he's just waiting till I get to the league. But that's the biggest thing, and it makes me happy seeing when people have the logo on, just representing the brand, like the hoodie representing the brand, everything like that. It makes me happy.
Now, here's your first mini twist. Because this is where it gets bigger than one player. What Shedeur is doing right now is quietly rewriting the rules for every athlete coming behind him. For decades, the message to young players was simple. Your value is your draft slot. Fall in the draft, fall in the marketplace. Period. Shedeur is proving in real time with real numbers that the pipeline has changed. That an athlete who builds his own audience, who owns his own story before he ever signs a pro contract, carries that audience with him no matter where he's picked. He came into the league with the following most veterans would kill for: years of documentaries, viral moments, sold-out college stadiums, a father who turned every press conference into appointment viewing. By the time the NFL got him, the audience was already built. The league didn't make Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders brought his fame to the league. And executives are just now realizing what that means. The next generation of stars won't wait to be marketed. They'll arrive pre-marketed. And if your models can't account for that, your models are already obsolete. Let me paint another picture for the editors. Training camp footage, fans pressed against the fence. And look at the jerseys in that crowd. Count them. Notice how many number 12s you see, on kids, on grandmothers, on guys who've been Browns season ticket holders since the old stadium. That's not a marketing campaign. Marketing campaigns can't do that. That's organic. That's a belief you can photograph. And here's the delicious irony in all of this. Remember draft weekend? Remember the anonymous quotes, the whispers about attitude, about interviews, about whether he gets it? Teams passed on him over and over, and plenty of people in the media nodded along like it was justified. Now flip the frame. The same qualities that scared front offices, the confidence, the self-belief, the refusal to shrink himself to make evaluators comfortable, those are the exact qualities selling out merchandise right now. The red flags were the brand. Fans didn't buy the jersey in spite of the swagger, they bought it because of it. So, who actually misjudged whom?
If you had to describe your brand, what are a few words that describe what that is?
It's one word. It's legendary.
Y'all can clap for that.
Yeah.
Legendary is a good word. Yes, sir. It is an extremely good word.
Yeah. Anybody knows me on Instagram, that's the only word I use.
Why is that word so important to you?
And look, I can already hear the other side of this, and it's a fair argument, so let's give it its airtime. The skeptics will say jerseys don't win games. Merchandise records don't complete third and long. There's a graveyard full of hyped players who sold gear and never delivered on the field. And until Shedeur strings together wins as an NFL quarterback, all of this is just noise and nostalgia for his college highlights. That's a real argument. It deserves respect. But here's my counter. Since when is being loved by millions of paying customers a bad foundation? The pressure argument cuts both ways. Yes, the spotlight is heavier now, but this is also a kid who has played in front of hostile crowds, carried a program on his back, and answered questions about his father since he was a teenager. Pressure isn't new to him. Pressure is his home address. And there's one more layer here that I think people are sleeping on, the business layer. When a player generates this kind of revenue, this kind of attention, this kind of measurable, undeniable demand, he stops being just a roster decision. He becomes an asset. Coaches make decisions about players, but when a player starts moving markets, suddenly a lot more people in the building are paying attention to how he's used, how he's featured, how he's treated. Money doesn't guarantee a starting job, but money always guarantees a conversation. So where does this go from here? Let's play it out. Scenario 1. Shedeur gets his shot, plays well, and this merchandise wave turns into a full-blown tsunami. If these are the numbers before he cemented himself on the field, imagine the numbers after his first signature win. Imagine a primetime comeback in Cleveland with a stadium full of 12s. The record he just broke would look like a warm-up act. Scenario 2, the on-field journey gets bumpy because rookie quarterback journeys almost always do, and we find out whether this connection with fans is a trend or a foundation. Here's my honest read. Everything about how this fan base has behaved so far says foundation. They didn't buy in because he was handed anything. They bought in because he wasn't. You don't abandon an underdog for struggling. Struggling is the whole point of an underdog. Either way, one thing has already changed forever, and no result on the field can unchange it. The idea that draft position defines an athlete's worth is dead. Shedeur Sanders killed it. with receipts. So now I'm turning it over to you, and I want the comments loud on this one. Is Shedeur Sanders the most marketable player in football right now? Yes or no? Did every team that passed on him make the biggest business blunder of the decade? Or is this all hype waiting to be humbled? And here's the spicy one. If the fans' money talks this loudly, should it have any influence on who lines up under center on Sundays? Or should that decision belong to the coaches and nobody else? Drop your take below. Smash that like button if you believe the market got it right and the league got it wrong. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because if the first chapters of this story taught us anything, it's that Shedeur Sanders doesn't stay quiet for long. And somewhere in Beaverton, somebody is updating a forecast model right now and praying they finally got it right this time.